Hello, this is Ray Motor from ACG, and welcome to this Fireside Chat. I'm excited today. Joining us today are two subject matter experts from Turnium Technology Group. Joining us will be Geoff Hultin and also Logan Campbell, which are experts. And before I get into the introduction of them, the topic of today is SD-WAN and the next evolution of SD-WAN. And one of the key things that we see over the time is that SD-WAN is becoming the default standard for any time you talk about WAN deployments. We see the maturity. We still see CAGR growth in the enterprise in the triple digits, depending on what entry points and the customer segments that you have. So there's tremendous opportunities, but there's also some lessons learned. We've learned that a lot of service providers, when they're deploying the service, they need to operationalize it within their existing footprint before going out of the footprint. We also see the opportunity that if enterprises try to do this alone, there was a tremendous amount of complexity, which kind of created a tremendous opportunity for a lot of service providers to go in there and create a managed services. They know how to build reliable and scalable network, but they also need to understand that it's not just SD-WAN. SD-WAN has to be that platform for innovation, but there's opportunities to go after TAM. So I'm excited today. We've got Geoff and Logan. Maybe Geoff, you can talk a little bit about your background and your role, and then Logan, you can follow up, and then we can get into Turnium, and then we'll just have a discussion from there.
Sure. Thanks very much, Ray. Geoff Hultin, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Turnium Technology Group, responsible for sales and marketing across the organization. And we bring to market a very powerful SD-WAN platform that can be deployed in a number of different fashions as a managed service or by service providers to power their own managed service. So we're very excited to be here today, Ray. Thanks for inviting us.
Sure. And Logan?
Oh yeah, Logan Campbell, Global Vice President of Sales with TTGI. Essentially, I oversee all of our partner relationships, account management, partner engagement, enterprise sales, and the teams that go out and deliver those for our partner channels and direct channels globally. So it's great to be here. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah, no, I think what's good about this is because we've got, for the audience, we've got Geoff, who's going to cover and has tremendous background from the strategy and executive viewpoint and some of the trends. And more importantly, we've got Logan, who's the feet on the street. For a lot of these audience, I think some of those insights are going to be valuable. So maybe we'll start off from a discussion is, what questions should company be asking themselves about SD-WAN? How would you address that?
I think the biggest one is what's important to you as an organization. So depends on, is the customer an enterprise customer? Is the customer a service provider that's taking this SD-WAN product and delivering it on to their enterprise customers? I think at the end of the day, what is most important is health of network, health of WAN, visibility, control. Is that important? Is the margin important? Control over productization, how it's delivered, is that important? Or is it things like all-in-one solutions and one throat to choke, right? I think those are the big questions you got to ask yourself, again, whether you're an enterprise or if you're a service provider, because SD-WAN is, you ask 10 SD-WAN vendors to define it, you'll get 15 answers.
Right.
So,
and I think you touched on something which is important, right? Is the point about margin, right? So and I think that's one that needs to be discussed quite a bit, because if you look at sometimes the motivation moving for SD-WAN, you had the enterprises that said, hey, listen, Logan, this particular service provider is just taking too long and it's impacting my business continuity. And I've got as moves and changes. I'm moving to cloud-based applications, and they're just having optimized their cloud environment. But then you've got the service providers also saying, well, my existing support and operations of supporting the IPVPN service today is very expensive. So it's a weird dynamic because you have an imbalance of both parties that are unhappy, one with business continuity and the other one with the margin. So I think that's something, are you seeing the same type of thing there?
Most definitely. I think you're missing one as well, Ray. I think we're missing the fact that global carriers have made a lot of money and a lot of margin with MPLS over the last 20, 30 years. That's a lot of revenue. And SD-WAN is coming in and cannibalizing that revenue.
Right.
And so if there's a big difference between a global carrier that was making 60, 70, 80 points on MPLS
Right.
versus getting 20 off of a managed service of an SD-WAN provider. That's a big difference in revenue for those service providers.
Yeah, and it
And
kind of
I
scares
don't
them
think
a
it's
little
talked about
too,
enough.
right? Yeah.
It
Go
does.
ahead.
It totally
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
And I think to add to your point there, Logan, as carriers look at how they can deploy SD-WAN, they can look at outsourcing a solution to an existing SD-WAN provider that's going to give them a full package. The challenge there, of course, is you get the full package. You get what you get. And you're not necessarily going to be able to negotiate or insert different components of your own value proposition into that package. So, well, you can, I guess, but you're still going to pay the full price.
Yeah.
So to manage your margins, to figure out how you want to do this, you really have to have a clear strategic view over the long term as to where do we want to go here. And what I see happening in the market is exactly the same thing that's happened, I think, at least twice before, which is with the current generation of SD-WAN platforms out there, the carriers are saying, hang on, we're being reduced to dumb pipe. We don't want that. We thought these were our customers, but what we've realized is we're now transitioning our customers to somebody else's platform. They become their customers. And at the end of the contract, the end customer goes, hang on a minute. I know who I'm getting the service from. It's not carrier A, it's SD-WAN vendor C. Well, I'll just go see if I can find somebody else who'll give me a better price. And now the original carrier that took all the time and energy and money to onboard those customers is going to start to see churn, especially where the SD-WAN vendor C can be repped by multiple vendors in the same geography. Like you have to have that very clear long-term strategic view of what are we trying to do? Are we trying to build our brand, or are we trying to build somebody else's brand?
Well, what's happened with that is the big SD-WAN vendors that brought in the firewall functionality and are really now owning the relationship with those customers. They're just becoming new carriers to compete with the existing ones. Right. So I agree with you 100%, Geoff.
Yeah, and I think it's important too, because you have to figure out from a strategic point of view. I mean, we're touching on a good topic when they do the evaluation and asking the question from that area, because you have to figure out your customer acquisition costs, and you spend so much money to acquire that customer. The last thing you want to see is someone who you have as a vendor competing in that particular area, especially since we talked about MPLS, right? Where in certain cases you could try to embrace, but there's going to be a time where if you don't offer some level of combined SD-WAN solution, they're just going to go somewhere else. So it's a interesting dynamic that we're touching on there. Now, one thing that I want to shift the conversation to is that we've seen, I just did a podcast related to this, is about cloud native, right? And this whole cloudification is, why are we seeing this big push to cloud native, container-based deployment? Is this really a thing, or how is this shaping up the vendor landscape? And what are the hurdles for adoption that you guys see in your market?
Well, for cloud native, I mean, you got to go back to the whole concept of cloud, right? So cloud came out and made it easier for people to have storage, to have infrastructure, to have servers stored up in a cloud in a different facility that they weren't responsible for. And it made it so that it was more economical. They could pay as a service as opposed to big upfront fees. And so that's where cloud became huge. And the trouble with that, or not, like the challenge that enterprises came across, is as they moved everything from on-prem up to the cloud, a lot of people forgot about the network component. That if you don't have a highway or a pipe to be able to securely connect to those cloud assets all the time, what's the point of having them up there? I think that's why we've seen such a big push for cloud providers, and the companies like AWS, Azure, IBM Cloud have blown right up. But what a lot of people forget is that if you can't access that asset, I mean, it's really useless to you. And so why is cloud native functionality so important? So you can access those cloud assets, right? So you know that it's compatible with everything that you're spending money on for your corporate strategy, whether it be a single cloud, a public cloud, or a hybrid cloud strategy.
Right.
Yeah, and I think too with containers, as organizations move to the container environment for the scalability, the performance enhancements that allows, containers also allow you to get into, interestingly enough, VNF orchestration. So SD-WAN becomes one of the VNFs that you can deploy on a UCPE. So I've mentioned here a couple kind of big strategy
Right.
items. Carriers are very interested in UCPEs. Why? Because it reduces the on-prem cost of hardware, it reduces license cost, it reduces support cost. It makes it easier for them to get to the end customer, deliver multiple services that connect that end customer branch to cloud services, to carrier services, and to other customer branches. If done correctly, this whole push towards cloud native gives a carrier a way to create, deploy, orchestrate, and manage a cohesive environment across their customer piece. And what's going to be important for an SD-WAN perspective there is being able to quickly deploy cloud services, cloud-based services as endpoints in that SD-WAN network. And cloud and containers are going to be where everybody is looking to make this happen.
If they can make it affordable, Geoff.
If they can make it affordable, yeah.
If they can make it affordable, that's the challenge that UCPs have faced for the last few years. Is it's a great concept, it's a phenomenal concept, but the price tag's been way too high, whether it be from the hardware or from the networking component required to make UCPs work. I think that's why we've had a lot of success with companies like Red Hat, because we're OpenShift certified, with our CNF certification, and because we're truly cloud native, hardware agnostic, and software only. They finally found a way to actually make UCPEs affordable for the carrier and the enterprise market.
Yeah, I want to make sure there's one part here, because you both touch on something which I think is important when it got to cloud native and the unpredictability of the traffic. Would it be fair to say that if you look at what happened last year, right, with the pandemic, the traditional flow of traffic became unpredictable? You had this work at home strategy or hybrid strategy in traffic. So a lot of traditional branches, right, now became home, and a lot of people needed to have compliancy. If they had a cloud native type environment, would they have handled that better from a deployment point of view?
Most definitely. We have a ton of partners that are deploying SD-WAN to homes, because what they can do is they can segregate traffic, they can prioritize traffic. Husbands, wives, and kids aren't fighting over the bandwidth coming into their house anymore, and then not just in their own house, but fighting everyone in the neighborhood because there's shared circuits and over provision in the neighborhood. And so being able to manipulate your bandwidth at home, whether it be through split tunnels, through quality of service, prioritization, what have you, or mitigating the effects of network congestion even. That's what SD-WAN does. And so, yeah, the people that have had that put in place I'm assuming, I know I have, had a much better experience being stuck on these Zoom sessions all day long.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. No, thanks for answering that. I think the other part, Geoff, is you touched on a part earlier. It's about, openness and flexibility. And correct me if I'm wrong, Turnium does not offer a proprietary integrated end-to-end solution, but it does work with a lot of technology partners to deliver this solution, right? What are the benefits that you see as being a somewhat technology agnostic, and do customers still even care about best of breed or want something else? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think certainly if you're a service provider or a carrier managed service provider, yeah, absolutely. What you're looking for, in my view, is a delivery platform, a virtual overlay network platform that allows you to get that connectivity to a customer site, deliver it, manage it. Even if you're not delivering the connectivity yourself, you're just over the top of existing circuits, you're still managing it and you're controlling that quality of the experience. On top of that, then you're adding your own services as components. So if you're a voice provider, a contact center provider, hosted desktop, you're doing any type of managed services, you're blending obviously security into that. You're going to have different offerings for your customers. The small guys might get a package A that has the price point suited for small guys. The middle-sized company is going to get package B. The large enterprise are going to get something completely customized. The challenge when you're buying kind of, let's say, SD-WAN managed services off the shelf, is you do get one size fits all. You get that SD-WAN vendor's choice of security solution. You fit into their box, you fit into their price point. What we've done is we've said, look, we got a disaggregated model. We're going to give you great connectivity. We're going to give you a great business model and licensing model. You build your stuff on top of that, build your own value prop. And because we're white labeled, you build your own brand. So it's, what we're trying to do is enable people to run their businesses better and to deliver services that they want to deliver to the end customers, to react to their unique markets, their price points, their services. Logan, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, Geoff, like you were touching on something. Isn't that the whole point of why SD-WAN was created? Was for a network connectivity product. I don't know. Like when I first started reading SD-WAN, it was replacing MPLS.
Right.
I don't remember MPLS having layer 4 to 7 policy enforcement built into it. I don't know about you.
Right.
That's always been a firewall functionality as far as I'm concerned. So I think we got lost somewhere along the way, confusing what SD-WAN was supposed to be.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of discussions on that, about the confusion on the market about defining SD-WAN and confusing applications and VNF. We touched on connectivity. I used to say, when people say, oh yeah, I've got this private cloud, I'm like, well, you need a network to build that cloud, and you need to be able to connect to it. It doesn't just happen. So it's a good point from that area. But I think that what I'm getting from this, Geoff, is, if I understand it correctly, is that your brand should be important, number one, right? Number two, your priorities should be your business priorities and initiatives and your goal, as opposed to what a vendor's is. And then number three, to identify, because you know your customer space and your customer segment, identify your customer personas, right? So that you don't just create this horizontal model to try to solve everything, because then there's a lack of communications on how you address a vertical like healthcare versus retail versus public sector. Is that the right interpretation there, Geoff?
Yeah. It's very much, as a business,
Mm-hmm.
you, I, people watching this video, we have our own business self-interest at heart. We need to. That's how we pay the bills. We pay our staff. So when I look at this and say, okay, if I imagine myself to be a UCaaS provider or a contact center provider or anybody else, I want those customers to think about the quality of my service.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want them to go, oh, gee, Geoff's a great reseller of product X.
Mm-hmm.
Because then my differentiation is really built on, maybe what I'd like to believe is my outstanding service delivery. But there's a lot of people who say they got great service delivery. I got the best PS guys. I got the best quality of experience. I got in the telecom world, customer experience, service delivery, these things are critical. They are what retain customers,
Mm-hmm.
but we also have to provide some unique value add. And if I can onboard a technology like SD-WAN that builds my brand and allows me to deliver better services, to bundle uniquely. Now, in addition to my great customer service, I'm building a unique product bundle. And,
Right.
and that allows me to fight with both hands, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Geoff, that's what we deliver to service providers, what we've been doing for years, right? We give them the software and the tools to be able to build and deliver their own product set, right? Leverage their existing assets. They've spent years building up these networks. All these carriers, they have fiber access everywhere, right? They have data centers everywhere, right? Why I'm going to tell them that they can't go use that to deliver a network product to their customers, right? Leverage that infrastructure, leverage those assets, build better service on top of that.
And importantly, Logan, to take those assets and to now say, okay, I have assets. I got network in geography A.
Mm-hmm.
But I got customers with branch offices in another country, in another state, in another hemisphere. How do I deliver my services to them? And what you really want to do is I want to give those guys a platform that says, you manage your network here. It's a fantastic network here. Now bring these other sites into your network. Here's an SD-WAN platform that allows you to do that. It allows you to set up a POP in another hemisphere, maybe using somebody else's cloud service. And now you've extended your network halfway across the world because you've got a concentration of customers over there and you want to start bringing them in. So I think, to me, the excitement around SD-WAN that I have is that it could be such a transformational technology, such a transformational solution. But what I see is people kind of, I don't know, being short-sighted, taking the easy path, and they kind of have voted to, well, I don't want to deal with the carriers anymore, so I'm going to move my business over to these SD-WAN managed service providers. But the SD-WAN managed service provider looks just like a carrier.
Right.
So, like, have you really truly done anything?
Right.
I would argue no. What you really want to do is control, back to my point, you want to control your business. So take a platform, build a service that you control and manage, take it out there, make it cloud native, get hardware that is not exorbitantly priced. That's a big thing. And so that you can manage your margins and have a better business growth and all of that stuff. Sorry, I'm going on here a bit, Ray, but
I like the passion. Keep going. That's good. Then yeah. Now maybe this might be a trivial part of the question, but as more workloads continue to move to this cloud-based delivery model where there's infrastructure as a service or software as a service, is there really a need to secure the connections for this hybrid multi-cloud? Is that necessary, or could we just use simple internet connectivity to solve that issue?
Well, I don't know, Ray. I see 5,000 ads a day on LinkedIn about cybersecurity attacks.
Okay.
So you tell me, man. I mean, all I hear about is ransomware and people being held hostage by hackers or threats or phishing attacks or this or that, the other thing. So I don't know. I'd say it's probably pretty important if you're investing into Palo Alto to protect as a firewall to protect your site, you should probably also invest into the transport of your data.
Right. Yeah, the transport as well. Now, I knew it was a trivial one, but I like to always address it because, what's happening is there's people say they have security, right? And then you realize when something happens, like, well, what level of security should you have? You should just have a simple IPsec or simple VPN, you know what I mean? And depending on the deployments, we've seen certain CIOs make the mistake and then realize where they deployed a certain SD-WAN vendor and half of their branch locations don't meet compliancy for their security deployments and stuff. And I think that's where I've seen some people get burned and then have to allocate extra budget for that.
And I'd also like to add there, if I could, Logan, I'd also like to add there, Ray, like the value that SD-WAN has over VPN is that frankly, it's easier to deploy, it's simpler to manage. VPNs are PS intensive management things. When you have to do the MACDs on them, you got to go in, you got to touch every box, you got to figure out, test it, make sure it's done. Delivering a multi-site meshed VPN service is a pain. It's a big amount of work. Right. And customers are going to pay a lot for the CPE required to do that, but they're going to pay even more for the labor. What SD-WAN does is it gives you a platform to automate all that programming, to create the links, the security between a branch and the core of the network, to encrypt the traffic, so that it's not, it can't be intercepted. The other thing that I really like about SD-WAN is when you use multiple circuits at each site, something we do is we do per packet link-based distribution. So when you think about a flow of data coming out of a site LAN, what we're doing is we're taking those packets and we're balancing them across, let's say, 2 circuits. We got a couple different algorithms to use for doing that, but we're balancing them across each circuit and we're encrypting it at the same time. So, man-in-the-middle attacks are much less likely to succeed because you got to then intercept the traffic from 2 different circuits on 2 different carrier networks. You got to de-encrypt it. You got to put it back to, like, it's a ton of work. It just ain't going to happen. Right. So there's the encrypting data in transit is also part of privacy and security regulations. So you got to pay attention to the data at rest and the data in transit side of things as well.
Oh, that's excellent there. Yeah, now maybe we'll talk about just some of the parts on your strategy and benefits. Is I've seen companies like Equinox, let's say, for instance, or Equinix, right? I always get those mixed up there, right? They get mad at me because I mix them up when I talk to each other. But Equinix, when they develop their own infrastructure-based models, solutions, primarily to meet some of these hybrid multi-cloud use cases to help rapidly deploy these workloads worldwide, right? I mean, is this the future of this business and technology? And how would a data center provide benefits from Turnium's multi-tenant model, would you say?
Do you want to take a kick at that, Logan?
Sure.
First?
I mean, well, I think as technology evolves, the big
Mhm.
players understand they need to evolve as well. I mean, IBM's a system integrator.
Right.
They're also a
Yeah.
massive cloud provider, right? So they
Right.
see the opportunity of where technology needs to evolve, where there can be benefits, and they grow. And so Equinix getting involved in this, I think it's just another example of that, of these large
Yeah.
organizations understanding they need to adjust and evolve and provide better service.
Right.
And I think from a data center perspective, what SD-WAN allows you to do is give your clients, those end users that you're really trying to market to, the secure on-ramp into the data center. Because when I look at the market, you got the hyperscaler guys and they're all over and they got massively low costs. They're
Right.
extremely low cost. Then you got another layer of, the IX guys who are starting to get into the data center market, just like Equinix, and they're saying, hang on, put your data with us because it's closer to your end customers.
Right.
And that's cool, but they got to give their end customers a way to get into their data center.
Yeah.
If I'm a
Yeah.
regional data center provider or a national data center provider, I'm looking at all of this going, wow, I got a lot of competition. And I want to use SD-WAN again as my on-ramp into my data center to make it easy and affordable for that mid-market to get into the data center world. The challenge with cloud, as we've seen over, I think, 10, 15 years, has been that last mile connectivity.
Right.
Internet alone is not good enough. It's not reliable enough. It's not secure. You can't manage it. It's not your product as a data center provider, but you're going to get a lot of phone calls from customers saying, I got problems with your service. And then you're going to look at your service. You're going to say, well, there's no problem with my service. It must be your connectivity. And now we're back to that age-old triangle of customer, service provider, application provider, or data center provider. And they're all pointing fingers at each other saying, it's not my fault.
Right.
So what SD-WAN allows you to do if you're a data center provider is say, okay, I'm not going to give you the layer one connection. I'm not going to be your broadband provider, but I'm going to manage your broadband for you so that I can see the quality of that broadband. Is there latency? Is it flapping? Is there packet loss? Is there jitter? And I can also put together, I can help you as a customer deliver a solution that's going to give you the bandwidth you need at each of your sites to bring them into my data center cloud services, because that's what I want to do. So I want to enable more people to get in. And like SD-WAN is a no-brainer for that kind of environment because of that enabling platform.
No, that's excellent. Yeah. Now maybe just one more question, and we'll just summarize is from a commercial point of view and arrangement, we are seeing, certain enterprises require a different way to consume. I mean, what are you seeing as the implications as customers are moving to this increased on-demand IT consumption model?
I think it goes right back to your conversation about containers and UCPE. That's the whole concept behind it. The UCPEs by running containers can use less power, less resources, perform better for the enterprise. But the trouble is if you have no networking component to connect these back up to the cloud application, it's going to push the workloads as required down to the edge. They don't work. And so the networking component to be built into the UCPEs and the container models is absolutely paramount to make it work. But is there a demand? Of course. That's why companies like IBM, Accenture, Red Hat, they're investing billions into this right now, right? There's a demand for it. The enterprises need it, and they need to be able to turn on or off workloads as they see fit.
But importantly, they also have to be able to do it. The service providers delivering the service, you got to make money doing it. There has to be
Of
a
course.
margin in there. And the challenge with the, let's call them the incumbents, the hardware OEMs, the incumbent SD-WAN vendors, is they look at this and they say, why would I lower my prices?
Yeah.
I don't need to. I'm not going to do something cheaper for you because you've got, maybe wholesale partners or you've got margin requirements.
Mhm.
And why would I make it cheaper for you to buy a software image than basically a hardware device? Because, I don't want to shift my business from being, 60% hardware and 40% software. I don't
Right.
want to shift it to 40% software, 60% hardware, but take a margin hit myself or a revenue hit because all these guys are public. So they, they're going to be looking at their bottom lines, and you're just, the financials have to be there, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's put it simply.
It's a good question. Maybe what we can do, because we can obviously keep talking on, it's such a good, interesting topic. Maybe let's do the closing, and maybe Logan, you could summarize, and then Geoff, and then I'll close with it. But it's a great discussion so far, so I appreciate it.
Sure. I mean, the big takeaways for me, and I think where we're heading is, remember what SD-WAN was supposed to be. It's a connectivity product, right? It's about securely connecting sites to clouds, to other sites, to home workers, what have you, or connecting everything anywhere, if you will. But it's got to be affordable. You got to make money. So again, we remain to be a hardware agnostic, firewall agnostic, true connectivity offering that's branded as SD-WAN today. Could be network as a service, could be SD-WAN. But at the end of the day, we help service providers provide better connectivity to their customers, and we help them make more money and control that margin. So I don't know what else you'd like me to say, but
No,
I
that's
think
good. That's good.
We're
Make
moving,
more money, more margin sounds good to me.
make more money and have less support calls, right?
Right,
So like,
yes.
why not? Who doesn't like this?
Right. Yes. Geoff?
I got 2 points to make. I think, the first one is kind of tying back to the beginning. Understand your business needs, your use cases, and the impacts of your choices on brand, customer value add, and your sales process. So, telecoms, SI, MSP, you need to bring customers into your brand and your value, not push them into somebody else's model and services, because that's simple. You're gonna shoot yourself in the foot long term. And being a distributed sales force and billing engine for somebody else's market cap, that's not long-term competitive strategy as far as I'm concerned. And the second point I want to make, and this is a little bit of a cute one, but in today's world, with where we're going with cloud and work from home and all this stuff, the network is the computer. And that's Sun Microsystems from the 1980s, and that's John Gage, who kind of came up with that one. But the movement to cloud and edge compute means that network is critical. And in this world, like, the network is like the bus in the processor. Without the network, nothing exists. No data gets in or out, no communications, there's no user input. So what you really want to make sure you got is a affordable, high reliability network. And like Logan says, that's what we deliver. But everybody's going to make their choices as to how they want to do this. But this is what we think SD-WAN should be, and where we want to see it go in terms of developing and delivering value to our customers.
No, I think it's a good summary. I mean, because it's all about having enabling control and having visibility. Now, one thing I should have asked, I lied. One more question is, how does our audience contact you, and who should they contact?
Shoot us an email. You can get me at logan@ttgi.io if you want to follow up on this conversation or inquire about any sales opportunities. Or you can email us at a general email of info@ttgi.io as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. With Ray Moda, Logan, and Geoff, thanks for listening to this Fireside Chat.
I appreciate you, Ray.
Thanks. All right, now. See ya.